the same. You're going to know over 2,000 kanji. You're going to know over 10,000 vocabulary words. You're going to have an intuitive knowledge of advanced grammar structures. Even if you couldn't explain it to someone, you just know, hey, this is the way it is. This is what this means. Type. That's what you want. That's the ultimate goal.
Question?
Yes, sir.
How do you practice your listening?
Yeah, well, with the grammar courses, mainly with the grammar courses and the Japanese drama immersion courses. So the way that works with grammar courses, part of the grammar course, there's actually each entry actually has each word has two entries. So one is where I'm given an English sentence, an English concept or English definition basically, and I type in the word in Japanese with my IME. Cool. So that's basic, nothing special. The next one is I hear the sentence that is the example sentence for that word, and then my goal is kind of like, I'm not testing myself on it, but what I want to do is, do I comprehend what that sentence is saying? And then I pick the correct sentence and I read it out loud. So that's both listening and reading being tested there. So that's in the Core 2K series that I use that for the courses. I do a similar thing with Japanese drama immersion, where when I have studied like an hour of drama, what I did is, one of the things is, if it's a new vocabulary word, that's an entry. So I'm given the definition of that vocabulary word, and I'm trying to end the sentence in the sentence from the drama where that word was being utilized from. And then my idea is like, what does that word mean? Or which word is it? Now I'm going to switch that up now, where I'm going to look at the sentence first. I'm going to switch up to where I get the sentence from the drama, and maybe even close delete, like remove the word from that sentence. And I'm trying to think of with the definition and that sentence, what word should go in there. That's testing vocabulary. Then comes the second one, where the listening, where I hear the sentence from the drama, so they're speaking that line of dialogue, and do I understand what they're saying, comprehending? And if not, hey, there's a translation right there if I need it, and then I just look for the particular sentence. So it's not like I'm trying to memorize the drama. I'm just trying to comprehend the drama, and the way I'm doing that is by breaking it down into smaller chunks of sentences or vocabulary words. And then what I've done is I've ripped that entire hour of drama, I've got on my phone, I put that on repeat.
Oh, cool.
And I've done the same thing when it comes to, you see me like, oh, I'll read the transcript. So it's the reading practice can be, hey, I'm reading something that's comprehensible Japanese, because it's the transcripts for that particular drama. So I've done that with 4 hours of drama so far. Is that Kadashi. Next one's going to be from a TV show called Yusei no Kizuna. And then the one after that's going to be around 40. So it's playing on the idea, I think, in the intermediate sections of things, you can, if you're going to do sentence mine TV shows that have subtitles. Subtitle files available with subsets or S. Because it's a lot better. Yes, sir.
So you take apart a drama and then you listen to it repeatedly.
Because now because I've broken it down sentence, I have near 100% comprehension of that drama. So now I'm listening to comprehensible audio. And the reason why I'm saying that I'm coming from an AJAT type of background. But the guy had said, all you gotta do is rip anything, just listen to Japanese, anything is good. So I'd actually ripped like dozens of hours from all these dozens of shows that I had, and put them on my iPod, had on repeat, even did what he said, break it down into 5-minute chunks. So I broke them into 5-minute segments, put that on mix, and just listened to these on a mix. And did that for a year and a half while I was on a Navy ship in Japan. And I knew I was not, and I know I was not getting a benefit from that. Later on I realized. So I was doing what he was recommending, but I wasn't getting the benefit that supposedly he said you were supposed to be getting. But when I actually went and did a Japanese drama and figured it out, I noticed, like, after the second time I did, the second drama I did, the second episode of a drama I did, when those audios came up in that little cycle of 5-minute clips that I had on mix and repeat, I was comprehending those 5 minutes. And then everything else was white noise. And then all of a sudden something came up where I'm comprehending. And that's when I realized, holy fuck, okay, I need to understand the stuff first, then listen to that on repeat, not just put anything on repeat. So the thing what you do with AJAT, all Japanese all the time, you want to actively watch TV shows, sure, that's fine. But if you're doing like the constant listening, like having it playing in the background or on repeat in your ear when you're just going out your daily stuff, you're not trying to, because you can't just actively watch TV all day. then yeah, you want that comprehensible audio, because then you can follow along, and your brain does whatever the shit that your brain's doing to try to figure out what the hell it's hearing. Let's see.
Very cool.
Does all that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Now, this isn't magical, but it's time based. So, like, just trying to figure out when you first start this off. Let's say you have basic grammar under your belt, 2,000 vocabulary words. You got basic grammar under your, basic vocabulary, 2,000 vocabulary words. Basic grammar, like Genki 1 and 2, or SKM or Take Him, whatever. Once you got that down, if you start doing dramas at that time, 1 hour of drama is going to take you 10 hours to get through, to try to figure out line by line. And that's if you have, hopefully though, you're utilizing English subtitles. So you see this phrase in Japanese, and there's this English subtitle. So like, if you can't figure out what that sentence is saying in Japanese, you now have a professional who had translated it for you. So now you can figure out.
Yes.
And now you don't use that in your reviews, but it's great for when you're first learning that sentence. And that's a good sentence to keep in your Anki, because like, hey, let that sentence come out again and again, because this is one you didn't. And then if it's a sentence that you easily know, it's like, yamete, yamete. Well, okay, delete that. You don't need that in your SRS. You're going to hear it again when you're playing the drama, sure, but who cares about that? That's the purpose of it. You're going to be hearing a lot of stuff you've heard before many, 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 many times, because these are basic vocabulary is going to be repeated multiple times just by the nature of the language. You're catching the stuff that you don't quite understand, and then that's the stuff you put in your SRS, and that helps you make sure that you are constantly retaining what this drama is trying to get across.
Are you doing monolingual definitions?
No, not yet. I don't think in the early and intermediate stage you need to worry about monolingual definitions. You can, but I think you're making it harder on yourself. Now, what you can do is say, if you do monolingual definition, get the definition in English first. Figure out what it means. Use your master's level knowledge of English to help you learn this material, and then you can get rid of anything English related when it goes through the review side of things. So you can use English to learn it, and then keep it in Japanese for the reviewing. Does that make sense?
Yes. Another question. How often will you watch a certain drama?
Oh, you can watch it once, or like you said, you're constantly watching dramas. So just watch it. Now, we recommend early on. Let's say you're at the beginner stages, where you know dick all in Japanese. All right, don't try to just go straight Japanese at that time. Either watch a show that you already watched in English, and watch it in Japanese. So especially if you already know the story, watch that in Japanese for fun. Or if you have to watch a show in Japanese because you want to start getting used to what dramas to watch and what are fun, watch it once with English subtitles, then immediately watch it again with Japanese subtitles, just for fun. That's very important for beginner stage. In the intermediate stages, you probably don't even have to watch it. You could probably, as long as there's Japanese subtitles, you can follow along with the Japanese story. Especially if what they're saying in Japanese matches with what's written in Japanese. You can't do that with, like on Netflix, you can't really do that with American shows that are dubbed in Japanese, because what they're saying is not matching up with what's written in Japanese. So it's much more difficult to follow along. You have to depend entirely on listening, and your listening skills still aren't up to par to kind of enjoy what you're watching, or understand what's going on in the story at that time. So it's up to you, though. Is this something I was noticing myself? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So what do you think about the muffled voices in dramas?
That's where subtitles can help. Yeah. And if you don't get it, hey, that's fine. That happens in dramas as in American dramas. Like, holy crap, you watch The Sopranos, some of those guys, you cannot understand what the fuck they're saying. They're using in the slang they use is just completely out of there. Or like in the technical dramas, you don't know what the hell they're saying on the house a lot of the times. I mean, you kind of pick it up as like it's never lupus unless it is lupus, and then of course cancer is involved. But, you don't really know what lupus is. Okay, we kind of do, but yeah, like D&D, differential diagnosis. Did you really know that's what they meant by the D&D at first? No, you learned it later, but again, that's someone who already knew English. Now imagine trying to do that when it's in a language you don't quite fully understand. It's a lot harder. Anyway.
Another question.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point in your language learning journey, you are advanced
No.
or
I'm a very opinionated guy who happens to have access to a lot of material that I kind of looked at and listened to the results from other people based on how they how this material helped them. So I've been putting that together. I am barely intermediate, I would say.
okay?
So take my opinion with a big grain of salt. However, the resource I'm not offering my opinion. I'm offering these resources based on the idea other people said these are good resources as well, and my personal experience.
Okay, I have a strange question.
Okay.
What would happen if you stopped consciously studying and just
Oh, my Japanese.
enjoyed
I don't have to
Japanese?
I don't have to wonder about that because that happened to me when I came back.
Okay.
When I came back from, I was studying in Africa while I was stationed there, and I actually got real good. That's when I started the subs to SRS, and I realized, so I'd had 2,500 kanji under my belt via RTK, about 3,000 or 3,500 vocabulary words through Core 2K, 6K, and take him grammar, and then I started doing drama. So I did about 8 hours of dramas at that time. So I was doing pretty good. I didn't take the JCAT, but I scored like almost a 201.5 on the defense language proficiency test for Japanese. So that got me to about I got to have the what's called an NEC, Navy Enlistment Classification Code of Japanese linguist. But I wouldn't say I was that skilled. I knew my limitations. So around about N3 level. But then I
Okay.
kind of basically stopped studying Japanese, even though I lived in Japan, because when we work in the Navy, you don't need to use Japanese. You're basically in a bubble of English inside of Japan. And then at my house, we were only speaking Japanese, and I started watching a lot of American shows that I had stopped watching for the longest time. So I started getting basically just consuming a lot of English stuff instead of Japanese stuff, and yeah, my level just fell off a cliff over
But
those 5-6 years.
what if it had been you consuming just Japanese stuff
Oh,
all
I
the
think it
time?
would have stayed. What hurt me was
It would have
not.
plateaued, maybe.
Yeah, what hurt me was I wasn't immersing myself in Japanese anymore. I put myself back in that English bubble. So I think my skills would have improved. Yes, I agree with that. I would say if I'd stayed in that Japanese immersion,
Environment. Yeah.
yeah, I would have improved because I was at the level where I could start improving based on consumption.
How much would you have improved in comparison to what you're doing now?
I'm thinking, if I kept reading, because I was like halfway through Harry Potter when so saying, I mean, it's not like a deep book or anything, and I was reading a bunch of mangas. And I can follow along with subtitles. I was watching TV shows. I could imagine if after about 1,000 hours of consumption, I would have been around an N1 level or beyond. I could see that being more than reasonable.
Cool.
But again, I couldn't have done that. That 1,000 hours wouldn't have been possible if I didn't have that baseline built up from understanding basic vocabulary, 2,000 or 2,500 kanji, and basic grammar. If I didn't have that, and then learned a way to break it down, like build my listening up where it should have been, because I hadn't done when I was studying vocabulary back then, I unfortunately fell into that AJAT trap of what he had thought at that time, which is keep everything in Japanese. So we didn't. So how do you test vocabulary with that? Unless you actually have pictures of something to show, and then you type that word in Japanese. I wasn't skilled at that time. I didn't know about what the Fluent Forever method had recommended, which is, yeah, you might learn it in English, but somehow make it so there's only Japanese left for tutoring for the review part. I didn't know how to do that at that time. But that's fine. I mean, it should be all right.
What is it? It's like 625 words
What are we
for
talking
the
about? Oh, Fluent Forever.
Fluent
Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah, I don't recommend what he was saying. I don't recommend that. I think you can be fine with the Core 2K. I just like their idea of, just keep things in Japanese. Like, don't do one-way definitions. Like, don't learn from Japanese definition. Learn in English. But make sure we set up the reviews so you can keep the reviews in Japanese.
Yeah. What do you think about his method for learning grammar?
Not a perfect. I think that in Japanese that's a bad idea. It works fine in
Yeah.
English because if you're doing it from English to French or like Romance languages are connected, that works fine. If you learn 500 to 1,000 words and you start using those words to help learn more words, that works fine. And then just start basically do sentence mining from there. I think that's fine. I think I would say is if you do it with dramas, it's even better because again now you're attaching it to something you've seen and watched, and now you've made the instead of just reading, and that's going to be listening is going to be so fucking important because and I'm basing this on personal experience with one or two of my with two or three of my English students that they're Japanese, and the ones who speak better English are the ones who watch it at home. So you definitely want to get into watching these target languages. You want to engage in watching and listening to that language for if you're aiming for 1,000 hours, if not beyond. But you need to make sure when
Got
you're
it.
listening, it's comprehensible. It's not white noise because you will tune that out. Your brain's really good about ignoring shit it doesn't understand.
Do you think it helps with pronunciation, even if
Oh
you don't
God, yes, this is good.
understand?
Because I knew one kid, he reads a lot, so his pronunciation sucks, but he reads amazing. His reading ability is amazing. Whereas another girl with a equal level of reading ability, her pronunciation is near perfect because she watches Disney cartoons at home, like a lot. And the same with another gentleman, he watches Nickelodeon at home for fun. So he's watching the Thundermans or iCarly.
What if it's incomprehensible and you just do a lot of listening?
Well, again,
Do you think
for
that helps
personal,
with
that does
pronunciation?
not help. That does not help. You got to somehow build up the comprehension first at that baseline, and then then you're at that tipping point where now you can just through. It's like you want to make sure train the person how to swim before you don't want to immediately throw them in the middle of the ocean. Train them to swim in a structured environment. Then later on, then wherever they fall, it's going to be much more comfortable than just immediately throw them anywhere and just say, hey, here's a bunch of random shit you can learn. You pick whatever you want. Now you got them struggling. I think you can make it a lot easier. You can present it to them in a structured way, and I don't think that's a bad thing. But try to make sure they understand you don't have to stay structured the whole time. Just maybe the first 300 to 400 or maybe even 500 hours of study can be structured, while you're watching Japanese stuff. And then after that, you can go to the more unstructured approach through sentence mining while you're continuing to watch Japanese stuff. But don't make it to where the only exposure to Japanese is during your studies. The Japanese outside your studies is really, really important.
What do you think about the Fluent Forever's pronunciation? What are they called? Guides?
Yeah, that's probably a great idea, and it's something I was a weakness when I started. I think they're saying like Dogen and his
Trainer.
for pitch accent, for pitch accent, it's going to be really important for Japanese. Whereas I agree. Don't learn off text. You want to hear audio of native people, and you hear these not only just the characters, the syllables, the phonics of each one. You also want to hear them put together with stuff, especially in Japanese. Don't think you just because you know these individual kana, you also want to hear like them using like two or three different words, like when you're first learning kana. So the courses I set up is you're going to learn this character, and here's three other words that are using that character, and any other character you previously learned. So by the time you're done with both kana courses, it's only 6 hours, but you would at least be given 500 example words. You're not meant to memorize those words. They're not there to learn vocabulary. You could later on if you wanted to. But for most part, it's just so you can hear, and you're making sure your ear is able to parse all these specific pronunciation. Because Japanese is a phonetically poor language, but they do have that pitch accent, which is it's something Americans are not used to. I'll put it that way.
Have you tried learning pitch accent?
Not yet, but I do have pitch accent informations on the vocabulary list, and when you do a Japanese text analysis tool scan of words, I'm sorry, if you do the EP Wing to Anki, I think it actually includes the pitch accent information as well. So if you know how to utilize that information, then yeah, you do get pitch accents.
I see.
Now, where are you at in your studies, if I may ask?
I don't study Japanese, actually.
Okay, are you planning on it or no?
No, I study Russian,
Okay, but you
and
know
I've
what?
been doing that for a little bit over a year.
Right, and same idea with Russian would be the same thing as any other language. A big thing is like not just the study of the language, but then consumption of that language. And I think and you can use Subsessor with Russia, with you know, just
Yeah,
find a show that here's a show that you enjoy watching. The Subsessor breaks it down in a sentence by sentence structure. The other thing I added was I scan the subtitles with the text analysis tool so I can get out a vocabulary list. And then I run that against an existing list of vocabulary I technically know because it's based on scans of stuff I've already studied. And then so I take out any of those vocabulary. So I'm left with just any of the vocabulary words in that material that are new. Now it's not a 100% perfect there. So when you're going through, you realize, oh, I already know that word. So all you do is delete or suspend words you already know. And then you're left just with
yeah,
words. And the other benefit, because of the text analysis tool, when it does that vocabulary list, it gives you a number of where in the line of text that this vocabulary word was first found. So, hey, all I do is add that sentence there, and now I've got the context sentence of why that word is being learned. I'm not learning the word for itself. I'm learning that word because it's used in this particular sentence in this particular TV show I am wanting to watch.
yeah.
And that would work in Russian as well. Now, I don't know what the text analysis tools are like for Russian. I'm sure it exists, right? Can you scan
I'm sorry.
can you scan a text file of Russian and get vocabulary words from it? Do you have tools like that?
Oh yeah,
Okay, cool. And so if you can do that, get like a frequency list, or if you can get it to where that text can say which sentence this word came from first appeared, you can get a ready-made vocabulary list based on any material, like any type of TV show or book that you're studying.
yeah. What do you think about? Have you heard of lazy kanji?
No, I haven't. I don't think I've heard of that. I personally think
It's
kanji is a solved problem. All right, RTK has solved it. KKLC has solved it. You know, you learn kanji as in a structured way. It just makes it easier for the adult mind to figure these characters out. Like for me, it's like on a pace of 15 characters per hour. So yeah, in about 150 hours, I could have learned 2,000 characters. You know, it's draining because again, it's basically pure study and memorization through the use of Anki because you're trying to create visual mnemonics to remember. But it's a solved problem. And then the next step is using vocabulary words to learn with those kanji to learn how the Japanese use it in their language. I don't think you need any really. You don't need to get fancier beyond that because that is so functional and works, and it works so well. You know, unless the system, I mean, if you got a system that replicates that, that's fine. But I don't think they're going to find much that does anything special that's even better than that. I could be wrong though, because I haven't looked at lazy kanji method.
Well, lazy kanji is just having the kanji on the front side of the flashcard
Mm-hmm.
and the keyword on the other side,
Well, that's
or
fucking
whatever,
horrible.
or
I've
the
done that. That is a
definition, or
bad,
whatever it
bad,
is.
bad idea. Horrible. That's passive recognition.
Passive, yeah.
Yeah. Do not do that. I do not recommend that.
Yeah,
At
I
all.
avoid that. I just
That's sort of like what I did with memorize, and luckily I got rid of that step. Was same thing as like you had the 8 choices of now the memorize course I have, there are the 8 kanji choices. Now so that's kind of lazy kanji. So here's a keyword, and then you pick among the 8 kanji. Now, but that is so super easy. I had students that were getting 100%, but they felt like they weren't retaining the kanji like they should have been doing. And that's where I started recommending, okay, hide the choices, write the kanji down from memory, then look for the choices. If you can still pick the correct one later if you want to, or you can get it wrong on purpose. It's up to you. But at least that one step was the missing sauce on that. Yeah, lazy kanji is do not do that. That's bad.
Yeah.
That's like saying, hey, that's like being presented the vocabulary word, and then you just have to know what it means. That's not a great idea.
yeah. I think what is his name? Gabriel Weiner, the author of Fluent Forever. I think he recommends using both, actually.
Right, but he didn't do very well in Japanese. And Shawn Andrews, he's the guy who, I think, Kanji Damage, or Fluent Forever. He's the reason why Fluent Forever is probably going to become a lot more popular because he had decent success with that. But when I met Shawn, when he visited Japan, I spent the day with him. His writing was sucked. He wasn't really good at writing kanji like I was when I was studying kanji. but again, he could recognize characters, and that was it. I can understand that's the main goal. Because
Who is this?
Shawn Andrews, he's the guy who did Japanese in a Year video series. So he
Okay.
wanted to spend a year
Yeah.
learning, because he already knew 3 other languages beyond English. So, and using the Fluent Forever method. So he's going to try to attempt that with Japanese. Now, the guy who did Fluent Forever, he tried that with Japanese and failed. So I think Shawn succeeded. And the way I'm seeing with Shawn, I think is the same thing. Is like, what Shawn did wrong was he wasn't listening to a lot of Japanese. And because probably he didn't realize there was much he could listen to. And so I'm trying to think of ways to, like people like Shawn, how can you get into that listening part, which is so important in these, which can be useful in these early stages. So it's less to worry about when they get in that intermediate stage and they want to start really consuming a lot of Japanese, like directly. Here's not watch it in English then watch it in Japanese, but like watch it in Japanese with Japanese subtitles. Get up to that stage.
Yeah.
But yeah, his
When you
writing,
watch
he's
the
already,
film,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah, go
I'm
for
sorry.
it. Yeah, what's your question?
How much do you understand of
More if it had Japanese
dramas or
subtitles than
whatever
if
you watch?
like I tried to watch
How
Your
much
Name.
comprehension?
Like for
Yeah.
example, I tried to watch Your Name. I didn't follow along with it too well. 'Cause like I said, I'm not like that super great at it right now. But the more I listen to Japanese, the better I get. I know that. All right, I've had personal experience from 6 to 8 years ago from when that was happening. The more I was listening, the better I got, and the more I concentrated on just watching Japanese stuff, the better I got. So yeah, right now I'm at it. Yeah, if it's got subtitles, I can follow along without subtitles. It's harder because I'm missing a lot more. My reading's so strong. Yeah, with subtitles, it's great. And then, like I said, I need to consume a lot more Japanese media to improve my listening ability. And later on, then I can worry also about my reading ability as well. Trying to get that better and better.
And do you keep track of your pronunciation over time?
My pronunciation ability?
Yeah.
Not
Do you have
really.
like
But
earlier recordings of
yeah,
yourself?
yeah. Since all this stuff is streamed, like right now, you're being streamed on
Oh.
YouTube. By the way,
Yeah,
surprise.
I found you. I found you. I don't know how I found you, but I enjoyed one of your streaming videos. I think you had a conversation with Matt
Yes,
from
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, what was happening is I was studying, and it was actually on this channel here, and I thought it was an interesting discussion, so I made a copy of the video and just edited it so it only had that portion of the discussion and re-uploaded that.
Yeah.
The yeah. In fact, I should actually put timestamps down. What I'm doing is you'll see me like there's every Thursday at 12 p.m. I'm having a discussion with the Japanese tutor on italki. So there's that. The first 40 minutes is them listening to my review. I'm doing a review, and then they're correcting in pronunciations or questions I might have while I'm doing my review of my material. And then the last 20 minutes is free discussion in Japanese. But my
With the
pronunciation,
tutor.
yeah, my pronunciation fucking sucks. A lot better in karaoke than trying to come up and talk in Japanese. And also on occasion, I'll read the transcript from that TV show. When that review is finished, I'll read the transcript for that TV show, and that takes about 40 or so minutes. And you can hear I'm like struggling. My pronunciation is horrible and all that. But hey, I'm having fun reading Japanese and reading it out loud. So there you go.
Got it.
And again, that's a snapshot in time. I can come back later and say like, okay, how bad was that a year ago compared to now? Type. But I think really,
Have you done this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've done that. Let's see. Like you want to link to a why you wouldn't understand what I was saying since you're studying Russian. Not
No,
Japanese.
at all.
So,
I wouldn't.
but
wouldn't
yeah,
be able to gauge it.
but it's just me. Yeah, I'm just reading the text. Yeah, and again, I think it's good to go look back. See, it's kind of like when I say when you're doing write down in notebooks and save those because it's kind of cool when you look back and there's like 5 notebooks filled with your writings and you look at the earlier stage like, good God, I was a blind guy with a club, something or other. Because that writing in that first few months, those first few weeks and months were horrible. But then later on, it's like, okay, at least the writing started improving. But I never was recording myself talking, except on. But now it's like, because I stream, people if they wanted to, then go back and they, like the first September when I did a stream, and then compare that to how I'm doing, like the next September. And then now let's see what, just if they want to, they can make a judgment on there. But yeah, I'm not that great.
Is,
I am not my level. I do not recommend people follow me because they assume my level is amazing, because it's not. And it just, I'm very vocal and strong in my opinion, because I was.
well, you give,
yeah,
you give good advice
and
that applies to to my Russian language learning. So thank you
yeah,
for that.
yeah. And, in fact, when I was on base, I was teaching kanji writing on base, and actually one of the students, it was for free, but no one was showing up. But some people did. But one of the students happened to be Chinese. Like, she was native Chinese, but she wanted to take the kanji class. The way Japanese were doing kanji was a little different than Chinese, and she said she was getting some benefit from that. So that's one thing. There you go. So even if you already know Chinese, it might be beneficial to look at Hazek's kanji stuff, just to at least notice how Japanese are doing stuff differently. But yeah, reason, like I said, I'm opinionated but most of my stuff is coming from, I trusted the opinion of people who say this is good material, and they were getting good results. So if that's the case, I say, okay, this is tried and tested, and I remember that. When I was trying to do Japanese seriously 10 years ago to learn it, I collected all this material and I saved it. So when 6 or so years later, when I tried to get back into Japanese, I go on the subreddit and I was sharing this stuff that I had saved that apparently no one else had archived or anything, so it wasn't available to anyone but myself. Like, I was the only guy who still had that kangi. It wasn't kangi, but the guy who it allowed you to sort vocabulary based on the kanji inside of it. And then using that program, and I used the list from the 2001 Kanji Odyssey book series, that kanji index list that they used, because they thematically grouped kanji. So it was like the most common kanji, and then in that group of common kanji, they thematically grouped them. So basic kanji up to not so basic kanji. And you found out with it, although that book was horrible to learn from, because they would show you words that use kanji you haven't been taught yet, because it was from kanji later on in the book. That was not a good vocabulary word to introduce to somebody. The sorting of vocabulary lists like Core 2K from that kanji index made that learning of Core 2K much more fun, much more effective. If you're learning kanji, if you're learning vocabulary in bulk. Now with Russian, you don't get that option. So what you do is you thematically group it like Fluent Forever done. They give you that list of words based on themes. Like here's house, hospital, school, theater, hotel, whatever. That's thematically grouped. And words that are thematically grouped, you can learn them in bulk easier.
Yeah.
And just at kanji, because the kanji have meanings, because you've sorted a bunch of words by thematically linked kanji, you now thematically link those vocabulary words.
Yeah, I think I heard you talk about putting the high frequency Japanese words in the RTK order.
Mm-hmm. No, don't do that. I put the high frequency kanji list in RTK order. So I'd say here's the 500 most common kanji. Learn those in RTK order. So RTK order is a great order to learn kanji in bulk. The Core 2001 the Kanji Odyssey order is a great order to learn vocabulary in bulk.
Yeah.
See, that's the trick.
I get those confused.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. And it was something that wasn't known or done, except I was the one who came up with the idea. I mean, you can actually see the posting on the Kohi forums where I did that. Because I was the guy who came up with the idea of RTK Lite or RTK Super Lite, which is, okay, hey, let's learn the N2 kanji in RTK order. And that became very popular. And then Super Lite was, okay, in N4 or N5, N4, and N3 kanji. It was called N. This was before they updated the JLPT, so it was like N1, N2, N3, N4. But same idea. Learn a smaller set of kanji, but a big set, but still smaller, in RTK order. And then you can get into learning vocabulary words quicker. And that proved successful. It proved popular, not only popular, it proved successful. Because it stopped people spending time in those early hours and days and months where you're learning a kanji that might be used 0.01% of the time versus a sets of kanji that are used the most, like number one, the kanji for number one is used, I think, 0.8% of the time, something like that. I mean, so it has a high percentage because the first 500 kanji in the language are used 75% of the time. And then the next set of 500 kanji, it would take you the same amount of time to learn those 500 kanji, but now instead of 75% of the time, these are used 15% of the time. And then you spend the same number of hours that next set, now instead of 50, now it's down to 8%. And so that last 500 kanji you learned in RTK, you still spent the same number of hours learning it as that first 500, but now you're only down to like 3 or 4% based on scans of Japanese. And I'm probably got the numbers off there, but it's a. But yeah, it's just it's called the laws of diminishing returns, or Zetki, or I forgot Zenchi, or I forgot some mind sauce.
Zipf's law.
Zipf's law, right? And that applies to Russian. So all you got to do is scan let's say get 5,000 Russian books, or better yet, get the transcript, get the subtitles from, let's say, 500 Russian TV shows or more. Do a text scan of those, and get the ordered list of by frequency vocabulary words. Get those first 1,000. See if you can figure out a way to sort those thematically. I don't know how the fuck you're going to do that, but
well,
and then learn those 1,000. Learn those 1,000.
Yeah. I bought a Russian frequency dictionary, and it has 4,000 words, and it has some of it is sorted by.
Sorry, I have to interrupt. All I heard was erection frequency.
Russian frequency. Erection frequency.
Yeah, that's what I heard when I joined. I was like,
it's the same thing. I listen to Russian. I get erections all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, same.
It's a beautiful language. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, same idea. No, that's the beauty that Chinese and Japanese has, is that you can't do that in any other language, unfortunately. So you have to depend upon the efforts of other people to give you thematically sorted words. Otherwise, you're just learning these in basically a random order.
Yeah.
Now there is one trick I tried. I haven't tried it, but I read is, what if here's a list of Japanese words. Okay, what if you can give the closest Japanese word that's close to that Russian word, and then thematically sort it by Japanese. And I think when you basically, because those words are linked, when you sort the Japanese words, now you've sorted the Russian words, and now learn the Russian words in that order.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's not perfect though, because
yeah,
it's very hard to get one word. That usually I like to get 2 or 3 words for every foreign word.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something I was tempted to try with Spanish to see what the outcome would have been like. I just never got around to doing it. But it's possible. I mean, you can also do it with Chinese, but I don't know if they've done something similar to 2001 Kanji Odyssey. I don't know if they've done anything like that with the Chinese kanji. But yeah, thematically sorting. If you can get thematically grouped words, those are good to learn. But barring that, just learn the top 1,000 most frequent Russian words. That's going to help out a lot. Especially if you have a Russian person speaking this word, and there's an example sentence using that word that the Russian person is speaking. You can get a lot out of that. That is like an amazing vocabulary list to learn. That's why I always recommend the Core 2K series. There's nothing really that amazing about the Core 2K series that doesn't exist in any other freaking book about Japanese vocabulary, other than the fact that they offered not only the example sentences, but Japanese professional voice actors speaking these sentences and words. That was the secret sauce that's why I'll always recommend Core 2K 6K. And one other thing, the company that did it accidentally, or they did it on purpose actually, but now they regret doing it. They had released it under Creative Commons, so that means it's free to use for everyone. That means I can memorize courses with these.
Core 2K, that's 2,000 words.
And not every word is vocabulary, but it's like the 2,000 most common vocabulary words, but unfortunately it's most common in 10 years of Asahi Shimbun newspapers. So you get some. Yeah. So you may not have dog in there or cat, but you might have like political party, or what was another one? Keizai, economics. But but because I sorted it by kanji, all those economic and more uncommon terms got shifted down to the bottom because they were using a kanji that wasn't used as frequently. So that was the other benefit of sorting these Core 2K, 6K lists. The trick is, get a bulk of 1,000 words, sort those. So if you're going to learn structured way, learn 1,000 words, and learn those in thematic grouping, and no matter the language, you should be fine. But yeah, Fluent Forever, that method works great too. 625 words. I'm sure if you learn the Russian equivalent of those words, those would be very useful words to know.
Yeah, I've got those covered.
Yep. The other thing with grammar is like, hey, that basic grammar is not rules. Grammar is basically a scientific look at a living language. And there's
Yeah.
like, here's the patterns we're recognizing in that language. They're the basic stuff are the patterns that happen all the time. And then there are more rare stuff. And I think they go into where you have to memorize these rules. No, instead, use that to help you comprehend what you're reading or comprehend what you're listening to. And if you use it as that, like you use it as a shortcut tool to comprehension and not for production, you get a lot more out of it. That was a problem with a lot of these college textbooks, is that they wanted you to use these rules to produce stuff in Japanese or in Russian. You know, it's like, here's a situation, tell me what this picture is saying in English. To a Japanese kid who has a, very, they can understand it if you tell them, so they comprehend it. They just can't produce it. So why don't just keep improving the comprehension, and soon the production will follow. That's the hopes.
How is Japanese grammar in comparison to Russian or
Well, I
English
can't tell you
grammar?
about Russian, obviously. I think it's much more structured and easy to follow. Now, when you in the written format, once you get into the spoken thing, a lot of this shit gets thrown out of the window. Colloquial phrases abounding. But no, it's pretty structured. And the way I looked at it is like, you ever heard of reverse Polish notation for doing mathematics? Like,
No.
you give all the numbers, boom, 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 boom. Then you end it with doing the whether the plus, minus, times, divide type thing. That's at the end. So here's the stuff. Then at the end is the actual what you're doing with those numbers. So that's kind of what's happening in Japanese. Is like, here's these. I call them prepositional phrases, but they're actually called postpositions because particles are put at the end of a word, not at the beginning of a word, like in a prepositional phrase. Right. So like with the dog, to the market, in the car, with my mom, kids in the back seat, crashed. So you have all this stuff happening. Then the important thing, the verb, is at the end. The way they tried to describe it was subject, object, verb, and that's wrong. It's more just verb, and then all this stuff's happening. Now you might have an assumed subject, so that's the wa, or that's the topic. So there's something called a topic. There's the assumed subject, or it might be there. That's the ga, and then there's the object. That's the o. There's the direction or placement. That's the ni, the day, the from, from, to, with, along, at the same time as, this sort of shit that's happening. Then there's relative phrases, which is a sentence within a sentence that we're used to. But it's all, in my opinion, it's all structured and it makes sense. It's in a different way of thinking than you are doing in English. So you got to get used to that. So it's not like you're learning like Japanese, you're getting used to Japanese. So you have to consume a shitload of it so your brain can do the thing where it does this stuff intuitively. It understands it intuitively.
Do you get used to it by consciously studying the grammar or by consuming native Japanese content?
Yeah, it feels like it's definitely the consumption. Like by hearing it so often, I just get used to it, as opposed to me trying to think. Okay, they said Woku wa kuma ni koen o hashita. You don't want to do the conscious effort. Trying to understand a sentence consciously through the grammar is very difficult because it's tiring as well. It's easier to do it in text than it is listening, obviously, but
do you still find it necessary to study grammar consciously?
I don't. It's not necessary, but it helps. It's that short. It's kind of like you don't need to study kanji. You can like try to learn it all in context. It just helps if you take away. Hey, here's a group of kanji that are going to be used a shitload of times in the language. Maybe you learn these. And here's a group of words going to be used a shitload of time in the language, so maybe learn these. Here's some grammar concepts going to be used a shitload of times, so maybe learn this stuff. And kind of explain like what's happening in the. Once you learn that, hey, don't treat it like individual words. And then treat the particles as individual. Treat them together. It's always kuruma de, and tomodachi toisho ni. Like think of that, or okusan toisho ni. Think of that as almost like a single word, because there's the word without the particle almost never happens. There's always usually a particle attached to a word. So try to think of it like that, and understand about conjugation. You want that to where here's a conjugation rule, but now you want to practice it so much that it becomes intuitive. Like you just already know it's hashita. You already know it's in the past. Even if you don't know what even if you don't know what the verb is, it's ran. But even if you didn't, you knew it's something happened in the past. Well, in this case, it was a verb that happened in the past. In this case, it was running happened in the past. Okay, and if hashiteru, okay, somebody's running and now they're still running. Tateiku, someone is going to stand up. You know, okay, why? Or kateoita, like someone bought something for the ahead in or plate. I'm sorry, oita, like bought something in preparation for something else. Like it just becomes intuitive when you hear it because you've heard it either through study, yeah, but then you want to consume it, so you see it in practice as well. And I think the consumption, read a shitload of language, listen to a shitload of language, that builds whatever the neural networks happening in the brains that where you're just used to the language. And that just speeds. The studying helps the comprehensible part. The same reason why you learn kanji and vocabulary. I think that grammar is useful. Just you don't have to memorize the rules. Just be aware of it. And if you're not quite sure, you can always go back and look. Same thing is like you always go back and look at the definition of a word, or you can go back and look at the meaning of a kanji. You know, that's going to happen over time. Yeah, I don't know. But what you don't do is like, hey, here I'm teaching you a kanji. Now here, write a new kanji based on these particles I've taught you up to this. No, you're going to learn a kanji that happened that actually exists in the language. So don't tell them to be creative.
Don't try to invent,
Because some people have done that. Some people try to make up kanji. It's like, okay, that's great, you're having fun and all, but that's dick all in Japanese. That's like making up a word. Like, don't be creative with these. You know how you can actually in Japanese you can put verbs together, like but you would never say like tateru. You kind of don't say that because that's standing up, but it's like the act of standing up from when you're sitting down and standing. Unless something's happening in between, there's really no tateru. So that, like we were thinking, but standing, it makes a lot of sense in English, but you wouldn't say tateru in Japanese. I'm guessing here, just because of the way they look at tatsu is the act from when your ass is connected to the seat to when you're actually standing straight up. That's the tatsu part. After that, you're located somewhere. I don't. But that's the difference between when you don't.
I can kind of sense what you're trying to say.
One of these weird things, like, hey, you know, what your verbs and words are doing in English. What your verbs and words are doing in English. You've seen it before. How do I say this English phrase in Russian? They always ask that. Instead of how would I express this concept in Russian? All right, because maybe the Russia has a different way of expressing. You don't want a direct translation. You want to have what their language, this concept.
Like a literal translation.
Yeah, because they have too many cooks spoil the broth. That's a phrase in English. Yeah, they have a similar concept in Japanese, but they don't use yori nin, for cooks. They're using something else, like lots of constructors. I forget the phrase, but I mean, there is a phrase in Japanese that expresses the same concept.
I think the Thai Kim guide gives the literal translation and the actual way they would say it in Japanese, right?
And that helps for a beginner to understand what's happening. And it makes sense, like if you're, when you started putting the English phrase, but putting it in the order of how the Japanese is in order. So, as for me, with my friend, to the park, walked. All right, and then you're saying like, okay, watashi wa tomodachi to issho ni koen de aruita. That's a legitimate Japanese phrase, and it's a phrase that's probably been spoken by a number of Japanese, and it makes complete sense. Now, it wasn't spoken as badly as I spoke it, but it was spoken. And yeah, and that's the same rule is going to happen with Russian. So I think to get back to the main point, it's not about stressing grammar and trying to use these grammar rules to now magically create Japanese that no one has ever spoken or uttered in their lives. Instead of that, just say, help you understand Japanese that has been spoken and uttered by the Japanese entertainment community, because you're going to be using it to consume Japanese media. And then because of after all this consumption, output's going to eventually follow, and it's going to sound so much more natural because the only thing you've ever heard was awesome Russian or awesome Japanese.
What do you think about grammar explanations, and particularly in that Thai Kim guide?
Yeah, I think that it's great because on a basic level, and it probably even works. Because it might be that's where also maybe looking at translations is better than looking, trying to translate something yourself. Use a subtitle translation. It could be like you're starting to get a sense of how this language is used and how you should interpret it in your language. And that, but maybe at a basic level, you can, hey, here's something really quick, because there's wa and ga is going to be used, so go with that. There's going to be ni, to, de, kara, o, this shit's going to be used. And these conjugations are going to be used, and again, you want to use certain conjugation stems. If you like, again, it's not non de iku. That's different than nomi ni iku. I mean, that even though there's still drinking and going. One is you drink something, then you leave. One is you're going to drink something. You're going there for the purposes of drinking.
Can all of this?
That's basic grammar, and yeah, understanding that helps you comprehend what's happening.
Can all of this be learned just by studying the sentences themselves instead of the explanations?
Early on, you could. It's hard as fuck because you don't even know what to look for. I mean, this way, some people don't realize it.
It's probably easier in other languages like Russian or Spanish, French.
Yeah.
Because you could actually see all the changes going on in the sentences.
Okay.
Without even having to look at the explanation. Maybe it's different in Japanese. I don't know.
I think you can figure it out if it's like, let's say it's a. You could, but why? It would be a better question. If you have it where, okay, hey, look, here's some really basic stuff early on from this book you're taking time out to study, and but beyond that, beyond the basics, maybe I could understand where. How about this? What if you were given not an explanation, but given here's a sentence in English, and here's how you would express it in Russian, and then they give you, and it happens to be, and they do that 5 times, 5 different sentences, but it just happens to be that all the Russian sentences are with what was considered a similar Russian grammatical expression.
Yeah, you get the sense of the pattern that way.
Right. Then, and that's really what a grammar book's doing if it's right. Like if you look on basic Japanese, that's where Take Him's weak, because he may only give 1 example, whereas a dictionary of basic Japanese grammar, they give up to 5 or more examples, and they go into a little bit more detail. And that's where your hair, all of a sudden your hair just stands up on its end, you feel like the wind blowing your face, like, oh my god, that makes so much sense now, type thing.
Yeah.
That's why Take Him is critiqued heavily, because he is very weak on the examples.
That's bad.
Yeah, but it's fine. But you can overcome that with because you're going to be seeing used with the sentences. 2,000 sentences from Core 2K, they all have an English translation that don't exactly. Soon you start noticing a pattern there. You may ask a professional Japanese speaker, who might be native English speaker, and say, "Hey, why is it this way?" And then you get that, and then another could be you look it up in the dictionary of basic Japanese grammar. It's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then there's Shinkansen Master in 4, which is a really good book. And that one is, I like that one because I've created a course for it. I even uploaded on the Kanji Quizbot on the other Discord channel, where it's like fill in the blank, but it's all in Japanese. There's no English for those questions. And you need to actually understand basic Japanese grammar to really give the correct answer. And he left. Okay. Oh, welcome back.
Sorry about that.
Okay, Amazing Atheist asking, who cares about Russian? This is a Japanese studies stream. I care because it's about learning language, and language learning can be universal. It doesn't have to be limited to Japanese. In fact, the guy who made RTK, James Isaac, he was skilled in 2 or 3 other languages. He was fluent in 2 or 3 other languages so he knew how to learn languages when he created this book. He just knew that the one difficult thing
Spanish, no?
Yeah, because he had written religious books in South America. But he was not a language professor. He was a religious studies professor, and he just wasn't, because he wasn't he wasn't about studying languages. But he had to learn Japanese, so he was approaching his concept of how he would go about learning. And he saw the one problem with Japanese was the kanji. And so he was going away to solve kanji for himself, and then other people noticed it this guy who doesn't speak a lick of Japanese already knows 2,000 Japanese characters. Like he wouldn't know how to write Neko, he wouldn't know how to write Inu, he wouldn't know how to write Taijou, but if you asked him to write fat or sunshine or cat or dog, he'd knock it out like stroke order perfect. And
if he was prompted with the English
right,
word, right?
Right, and then all of a sudden, yeah,
read that story.
And that's his story that he's mentioned that, and and I don't think I take his word on it because I've done the same thing. When I've said, hey, I've learned 2,000 kanji in 6 months. No, you mean hiragana, right? No, kanji type thing. I see these characters on that skill, and I tell them what it was in English, and it's like, holy crap! I've been studying for 2 years. I still don't know that kanji, or and I just only learned that kanji recently or something. It's like, but I only knew it in English, so I knew that was I knew the weaknesses of what he recommended doing, and so that's why we're developing this more structured course for beginners to get all the benefits from all these things I felt were great about learning Japanese, and in a search for it to increase the bang for the buck. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I think I've bothered you enough. Thanks for the chat.
So now, make sure. So your name's. Do you have like a YouTube channel, or you're just learning Russian, right?
No, I don't have a YouTube account, an active account. It's my name's Jesse, by the way.
Mm-hmm. All right. So what I might do is, this is a nice discussion. So I'll, since you were just having a kind of like a Q&A, and it was like really good questions. So I might just go and strip this time out and post it as its own video. Let me add you as a friend real quick.
Go for it.
Let's see. Block. No, okay. Add friend. All right, so let's do that, and I'll try to send you the link to it later.
Okay.
And I got to be sure. Now, obviously, I got to make sure. I got to be really careful about it. It's easy to start talking about learning a language because that then gets out of the learning link. Because I'm right in the middle of my reviews. Or you were watching the stream, right? And
no, I'm just.
You were just listening to me?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you saw the stream, I was writing kanji characters. All right, so for you in Russian, means that's all. And I'm saying these weird stories about Batman, The Dark Knight Rises, Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, the Lord of the Rings. I'm mentioning all these stories because that's what I use to memorize kanji. And I don't know if you do this stuff with Russian, but you can do similar things with learning pronunciation, where you actually each of these phonetical pronunciations have an image attached to it, so you can actually put these images together in a weird location, and all of a sudden now you know the pronunciation of a word. I don't do that, but you could. That's the cool structured part about Japanese. Chinese, you don't have to worry about that because it's pretty much one kanji, it's one pronunciation, or hanji, one pronunciation. With Japanese though, one kanji has usually two, probably more pronunciations. So
got it.
All right, so I'll
I've never studied an Asian language, so.
Well, Russia's in part of Asia. I know it's because they're part of Europe.
Some of it is.
I know they don't like me. Do they care about being called Asian, or they don't care?
Well, it's I don't think they do.
Okay.
I mean, there's Western Europe. It's considered Europe as well.
Mm.
And then in Asia, yeah. Most of it is Asia.
I think there's a little sore spot about Tartar, the Tartar invasion or whatever that was, with when the Mongols kind of essentially took over Russia. Genghis Khan. Okay. I'm sure they're not happy about that either. So I mean, I had no personal interest in learning Russian, but I can see it. It does seem like a beautiful language to learn, and there's a rich history to it. And they do have a very large entertainment library to lean upon for helping learn the language.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're learning the Navajo language, you're kind of stuck with just learning the language because there's nothing to watch in Navajo type thing, or Latin. How many movies have been put out in Latin? So, but if you're learning Chinese or Russian or Japanese or English or Spanish, if you're not using the entertainment material they've put out to learn, you're just doing yourself a disservice, and
right,
especially at that intermediate and advanced stages. And find out from, hey, post your proof is in the pudding. If people are like that speak fluently, like sound native like in the like Russian, and if they're saying, hey, the reason is because they watch a shitload of Russian TV, maybe that makes sense.
Yeah.
But they watch it without subtitles. Like if you're watching a shitload of Japanese TV and there's English subtitles at the bottom, you're not watching in Japanese. You're watching the English because that's how your brain's interpreting it.
Yeah. I learned that early on that it's a bad idea to do that.
Yeah. Maybe watching once in English, then in Russian, then yeah, you'll be good to go. But yeah, I'm glad you're doing good, and thanks for stopping by asking these questions.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it.
All right. And in fact, I need to take a break. I've been sitting in this chair for 2 hours without standing up. That's a bad idea. Hold on. All right, I'll take a break.
Okay.
All right.
See you later, man.
All right, so I'm going to take a quick break, stand up, walk around, get some water, some coffee, and get back to, I think I'll do an hour of Japanese. So there was a conversation happening in the chat stream, in the video stream, so let's see. Let me just read over what's happening. I have anything against, let's see. Oh, wow, this is a long conversation. Maybe I should just ignore it. Okay. All right, I'll tell you what, it was between Shalom and the Amazing Atheist and the Gecker D-Man. They were just having a conversation.